All right, so we're gonna talk about we're gonna talk about the Eastern Conference. We're gonna talk about the Eastern Conference playoff preview type of predictions. I'm gonna do both conferences. I'm not gonna try and spend too much time. Try to go in as quickly as I can to go through all four for the East and then all four for the West. And basically, I'll try and get my predictions and what I think is gonna happen or who has to be the key, and we'll just flow with it. We'll flow with it. And obviously, like I said, I'm gonna talk about these games, as these games kind of play out. Some will be breakdowns, some will just be me talking, obviously, and I will try and do my best as I can, as with the playoffs coming, but more things will get talked about more in depth as things transpire and things play out. You can't, there's only so much you could talk about in a prediction, but this will probably come out during the games because again, I had to wait till last night for the actual full out matchups to be solidified, right? We knew of the East, Thursday, right? Thursday night, but we're busy and all that type of stuff, things happening. We had to wait till now. So I'm trying to get it out as quick as I can. But again, it will come out probably during, you might see a game or two come out, or sorry, a game or two play out before you actually see these predictions. Again, these predictions are for a series, not for an individual game. And these predictions this year, I mean, it's going to be tough because it's a weird year and anything can happen. And this probably, out of all the years that I would be more wrong, it would probably be this year because anything can happen, man. Like, it's not traditional 1 through 4, the guaranteed seeds that are going to advance. And then the second round and third round are the more complicated ones. This one is complicated from the jump. Like, you have the Lakers 7th seed and stuff like that. So we're not talking about the West right now, but that's just an example of, like, you have low tier seeds that can actually do some damage and present some problems. So I'll just go ahead and sum it up real quick. So we'll start with the first matchup in the East. Sorry, is we got the Philadelphia and Washington series. So that one's obviously going to be more so exciting in terms of drama because Westbrook and Embiid have their past of, they have their history of, not liking each other and, talking that shit, talking that garbage. And obviously you love it. And now that you get in a playoff series, it's something to obviously appreciate and is going to have some remnants and, resemblance of, a throwback type of chippy type of series, right? And obviously, that is going to be what Elite looks like in terms of, honestly, all these series. I don't think there's actually going to be any bad series. Now, again, there might be some sweeps or whatever. You never know, right? But the games itself and the kind of story and the battle and the marquee matchups and stuff like that, you have some good ones and stuff to look forward to in every series. So let's look at, again, Philly and Washington. You got Westbrook and Embiid, the type of saga that they have going on there. Now, Beal will be guarded and he'll be tested in this series. Not going to be easy for him because, perimeter defenders in in Philly, they got some dogs there. They got, Tobias has stepped up his perimeter defense, right? Then you got Thibault, you got Ben Simmons, who people think that is the defender, the defensive, my brain, my goodness. He is defensive player of the year. So, right? DOP. And, Ben Simmons' value, that's his best value at this point in his career right now because he's offensively challenged in some aspects, and offensively, obviously, he's a struggle. Yes, a lot of times being a dunker spot, can't do this, can't do that. There's so many holes in his game offensively, but defensively, there's no holes. Like, he's actually an elite defender, a prime elite defender. Like, he's one of them. He's one of them ones. He actually reminds you, now that you look at his game, he reminds you a lot of Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen didn't have the greatest jump shot, and it was going downhill all the time. And he actually is a more Scottie Pippen type of breed in terms of elite perimeter defender. He's going to take the best offensive players, the most difficult defensive challenge each game. And, he could facilitate. He's more so of a Scottie Pippen breed. So he's elite, but he's not elite at the same time. And, that's how I look at it. He's elite in certain aspects, but we're talking about elite superstar level talent. He's not that. And, Scottie Pippen also wasn't that. So when we look at it from that perspective, but I'm even disrespecting Scottie Pippen more because Scottie Pippen without a shot, he was still able to average, what was it, 23 or he low 20s in his best, low 20s, high teens, stuff like that. Ben Simmons been struggling, but again, Ben Simmons also personnel as well too. He hasn't had a Giannis type of offense, and a Giannis type of offense, Ben Simmons probably would do so much damage. He might even get to 30 points per game because the offense he would have. So these things you have to play into it as well, and it's early in Ben Simmons' career, right? So I won't put him on that level yet, but offensively, but defensively, he's on the same caliber. Not the same caliber, but he's basically in that same tier defensively as, Scottie. Not the same damage, but very close. So, when you look at it, that's going to be tough, especially when you had length. That's what makes them such a tough, difficult defenders. The length, 6'9", 6'8", 6'9" in Scottie and Ben. And, you're going to put that on a 6'3", 6'2", 6'3", 6'4", whatever range Beal. Like, that's tough. He already has length to his advantage, and he's not a lanky, slower defender. He has the same quickness, the same speed, the same agility, as a guard. So that's always tough to, that's good. That's on you. That's always tough to kind of get off you. There's going to probably be a lot of screens and a lot of actions to get Simmons off of Beal, but Beal's going to have a hard day in the office in terms of this series, in terms of Ben guarding him. And then you have Thibault, right, who's of that ilk defensively too. Has potential. Then you still Tobias. Like, they have lengthy defenders guarding Beal. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for him. There's going to be a lot of setting screens. Robin Lopez is going to have to do some damage on screens. Gafford, all of that type of stuff. Bertans is going to have to hit shots to open up the floor so then you can't, get away with not switching and trapping or whatever the case is, right? Westbrook is going to have to be a dog downhill. Now, they might put Ben on Westbrook to cancel his drives and just sag off of him and they might do that, right? But you never know. Like, if Beal's frying, then eventually Ben is going to be on him at some point, right? You don't know what their schemes are going to be if they're switching everything. You don't know what they're going to do, right? And then again, Beal might have to try and pick on Curry and stuff like that. So, and then they also have Danny Green as a defender. Like, their defense as a whole, is elite. It's elite. It's very elite. And it will be more elite in playoffs than it is in regular season, right? As the game slows down. That length and, shrinking the floor, like, they can cover more ground and gaps and dig in. All of that, like, their defense is real. So, you're going to see, like, Westbrook and Beal might have games that they struggle. And because of that factor, I can see why people might say it's a sweep. I honestly, again, I just don't trust Philly. And I think Philly will at best 5 games, they'll probably win. But I could see this going 6 games, to be honest, right? If Beal at home gets hot and Westbrook get hot and Westbrook is going downhill and everything's going right, I can see them winning 2 games. I can. I know most people don't. If Beal is on that ability, if he's just potent with it. Now, again, if they're locking up, again, at times also as well, too, the Sixers can be offensively challenged because Embiid, if Embiid isn't Embiid, you know what I mean? And this is Embiid's MVP year, right? If Embiid isn't Embiid, and I'm not saying Lopez will lock him up or anything like that, but when pressure comes, sometimes Embiid wavers. It's not even like there isn't really anybody that could really stop him one-on-one, but mentally, he is frail at times. And let's just be honest, just call it what it is. In big games, he doesn't always show up. Now, the one thing about Embiid is he's finesse with drawing fouls. He has that hardened-like to his game in terms of a big man, where he draws fouls. He's tactical. He has that finesse. He's strategic. He knows he's smart with it, right? He has IQ in drawing fouls. So he could get 30 off, and shoot 15 free throws every game easily, right? Harden in Houston was getting to the free throw line all day, every day. And that's what Embiid was doing, and he does that as well, too. So, he's going to do that sweep through and all. He's going to do all those smart things to draw fouls, especially with Lopez, Gafford, whoever is guarding him, right? But now when they dig and they gap and recover and they add these other things, because, again, Ben Simmons is still on the court. He's still on the court offensively, so you could help off him, gap off him. There's certain things you could do, and that dynamic still isn't something that we've seen thrive in the playoffs. We've seen it thrive in regular season, even without years of, without Embiid having his MVP year. We've seen them thrive in regular season. in the playoffs, it's a whole different story. And that's what, obviously they're older. Obviously now they're better individually in terms of Ben and Embiid. But, it's going to come down to this whole playoffs for Philly is going to come down to two people. Embiid's ability and Embiid being an MVP and keeping that regular season type of game, making it translate to the postseason, as well as Tobias Harris being that shot creator, that Melo-like ability. So it actually is a duo in terms of Melo, Tobias Harris, and Embiid. That is going to be the main duo. And Curry hitting shots and Danny Green hitting shots. But even then, they could fluctuate. The role players could fluctuate. But those two guys have to be top tier. Not just for this series. This series, they might not even have to, right? Because that defense is so real. And the Wizards' offense does struggle without Beal and Westbrook going to work. They do pose some struggles, right? So their offense isn't always as potent enough to, still go through and kill, right? In terms of Philly. But in terms of next series and all that type of stuff, those two guys have to be real with it. It's going to come down to those two guys. And then Steph Curry, sometimes it's going to have to hit clutch shots and shot create in big moments as well, too. But it's going to come down to Embiid and Tobias Harris. They're going to be the dynamic duo, the dynamic shot creating duo, killing the mid post, killing the high post, killing some three situations. They're going to have to kill in all three levels. And that's going to be a necessity. It's not if and. It's going to be a necessity for them to go to the finals and have a deep playoff run. So pay attention to that. All right. So again, 6 games. I think it might go 6, but possibility it could go 5. Normally when I do a 2-game 5-6. I know people are like, oh, you have to stand by one and leave it. But 6 or 7, 5 or 6. I say if I had to put my money, I would say 5 games. But something is telling me I might be the one kind of outlier saying this. Something's telling me this could go 6 because I just don't trust. Again, for me, it's not even about Washington. I just don't trust Philly. So now when you have guys who actually have ability, and Beal is, if he's actually on that level and he's cooking, can get you games at home, I just don't trust Philly. I don't trust them. Now let's go to the next series, New York and Atlanta. Let's talk about that. This probably actually could be a 7-game series. They're both neck and neck. You know what I mean? You got Bogdanovich for Atlanta. You got Trae Young. Trae Young has never had a playoff situation like this, being the main guy. He never been to the playoffs. His debut. Same with Bogdanovich. You know what I'm saying? Capella has. And there's been some other guys like Gallinari and stuff like that. Solomon Hill. Some crucial guys like that. But your main guys they're fresh to this. Same with New York. Your main guys are fresh to this. Obviously, Derrick Rose, he's going to be more of a main guy. In the regular season, he hasn't been, but in the playoffs, you're going to see Derrick Rose be more than just a 6 man. He's going to be like a Tony Parker for this team. He's going to feel like a starter and feel like one of the main guys at times. You're going to see that a lot. You're going to see that translate, and that might give New York the edge, honestly. Now, Julius Randle is in the same boat as Trae Young, right? Julius Randle, R.J. Barrett, same boat as Bogdanovich and Trae Young, right? Those two secondary top tier, 1 and 2 option, whatever, 1, 2, maybe 3. Those no options are their rookies to this in terms of playoffs, right? It's going to be their debuts. So, that can go either way. Julius Randle is a dog, and he has, some type of experience, not in playoffs, but he has some type of close game experience, like fighting for playoff spots with New Orleans or whatever. It's not the same now in playoffs, but I would say he has more of an edge than Trae Young and some of them. And he's been seasoned more in the league. But then again, they're all in the same boat. So this honestly could go either way. If I had to put my money on it, I just think the defensive attention and just the dogs they have, and that Derrick Rose factor, he might be the best player in this series. And I think that's gonna sway New York to win in 7 games. They actually might win in 6, but I think, when you have New York at Atlanta at home, I think they can win all 3 at home. I think this might go 7 games, to be honest. And I would take New York in 7. And, not just from the home court advantage, just from, like I said, Derrick Rose, you're going to see him shine in these playoffs. Someone who's been there, done that, someone who's been an MVP, someone in these moments, they're gonna matter. These ISO ability, like Alfred Payton's gonna go to the bench, and Derrick Rose is gonna play starter minutes. He's gonna end games. Like, he's gonna do all of that, right? Maybe if they do go down 2-1, you might even see Derrick Rose start. You never know, right? So again, there's adjustments. There's all these things that you have to take account to. But again, these main factors and all of that, and then again too, you have Mitchell Robinson. I think is pretty much is injured. You have Nerlens Noel and versus Capella, that factor too. Both big men who play the same type of role. Like, they're more so identical in terms of like their role player play, right? And where their punches can come from, right? They're kind of identical in that. Obviously, New York is more defensive minded, and they might pick on Trey too. That might be a factor as well too, especially with Derrick Rose with screens and all of that, right? So, I just see like, again, it comes down to that Derrick Rose factor is going to be real this playoffs. So, we'll see how that kind of pans out. And, the attention to detail defensively for New York, they might suffocate Atlanta at times. But it depends if Trae Young is Trae Young. So we'll see. This one's fresh. But again, if I had to put my money on it, New York in 7. Now let's go to the next bracket. We got Milwaukee and Miami, right? Milwaukee and Miami. You got, what is it? A repeat, right, of last year's second round in the first round. And Milwaukee got upsetted by the Heat in 5 games. It was actually supposed to be a sweep, but it was done in 5 games. Was it 6 games? I think it was 5 games. Yeah, it was 5 games. They almost got swept, and they got lucky to win a game. I remember, and Giannis was out, but they lost in 5 games. And Giannis did get injured, but it was, I think, after game 3. I think it was in game 4. Yeah, I think it was in game 4, game 3 or 4. But they already were down 2 or 3-0. And, so they got suffocated. Giannis got exposed. They didn't even do too much of the wall. That Bam factor, all of that, applied. And, it was just different. Honestly, Miami could win this series. This is a series that I see going 7 games as well, too. And this one I think is a toss-up. I know a lot of people have Milwaukee. I think what will help them is the Jrue Holiday factor, and Middleton is more comfortable because it's not end all be all by him being the shot creator. You have Jrue and you have Middleton. So some plays, that pressure factor for Middleton isn't as intense as it was when Giannis gets padded and you have it's all me, and that's what it was before. So, Middleton goes from just spotting up and getting it in shot creation once in a blue moon because, now Giannis gets padded and I have to do it all the time when it matters. It kind of was, it's all being an end all be all by me. So he doesn't have to have that anymore. You could actually have Jrue and Giannis in a lot of pick and roll, and Jrue could shot create. So I think, they have an actual trio, and I think that can benefit them. But then again, the Heat have been ramping it up as of late, right? Bam, again, you put Bam on Giannis, he could actually neutralize and cancel all that Giannis shit. If Giannis is going back to the old Giannis. That's the one thing with Milwaukee. We don't know. You don't know. All this stuff that they've been doing in the regular season sounds and looks good, right? Giannis has been shooting more threes. He's been applying more ability. He's been doing mid-range takes. He's been doing post phase. He's not just going to the paint, right? Then they don't just do the 5-out with Giannis coming downhill. They actually have mixed up their offense, which is why they struggled earlier in the season. They didn't just go to what they know that's guaranteed to work in the regular season. They actually had some struggles by doing something new, having Jrue Holiday at times run pick and roll with Giannis, and Giannis looking like more of a advanced elite Rudy Gobert in the pick and roll, right? He also had that with Middleton doing that. Then he's pulling up in gaps like he's KD off that screen, doing alleys, and you have stuff like that, actions like that, right? You have what's it called? You have Mans doing that, right? So when you look at that, then you have a Pat Connaughton, and you have DiVincenzo also running screens. You have other guys doing some stuff. You have Forbes now with shooting, right? You have Bobby Portis now. Like, you have guys out there. You have more, guys you could go to, but it still comes down to those 3. And the fact that Jrue Holiday is integrated, that does make a difference. But then again, Miami's defense is different. You have Butler, right? You have Iguodala. You have Trevor Ariza, right? You have more defenders now. And they're not the same team because they're missing Crowder. They're missing some crucial guys, Kelly Olynyk, right? But they still have their Dragic, their hero, their Bam, their Butler, right? and they still have those principles. They still have that philosophy. They can still throw in the zone, right? That's something they haven't been really using OD. They still have that zone, right? So, I don't know how Milwaukee will look. That's the outlier. It's hard for me to pick Milwaukee, but it's hard for me to go against them because I've seen some things that I've liked. But again, I haven't seen it in the postseason. So, we know what Miami is. Miami has the blueprint for Milwaukee, right? What it's going to come down to is going to come down to when push comes to shove, when stuff is padded, when they're struggling, do you go to what you know? And this starts from Giannis and then the team. Do you go to what you know in the palm sweaty moments, in the nervous moments? Do you go to what you know, which is run to the paint, guaranteed, run to the paint? Or do you actually still shoot shots, creating shots? Do you still shoot floaters? Do you still shoot open threes when they sag off? Do you still shoot things that you've been working on, even when it's not working, even when it's struggling? Do you still? That right there is going to be, that's everything for Milwaukee come postseason. That's everything. That's what their season is going to come down to. Do you still do that? Or do you go to what you know and it's not working? Obviously, we know Giannis going to what he knows doesn't work, but then the shot creating from Middleton and Drew has rose to a level that is enough to win. And those are the two answers. Do you go to what you know? And if you go to what you know, now what you know before was Middleton is the guy to shot create, but it's not enough. Now you add a shot creator in Drew and Middleton. So if you went to what you know, Giannis get patted, he's still trying, not working. These two guys shot create. Is it enough to work now? Right? Because it's not the same what you know as before. You added a Drew Holiday, right? Or is it going to be the same at the end of the day because Giannis becomes a liability? And that it comes down to that Giannis factor in the playoffs that we haven't seen yet. Because again, regular season, all that shit, it sounds good. But playoffs is a whole different demon. And for your first series and your first tester to be the team that padded you and knows how to pad you, it's tough. I think this is a 7-game series. I'm gonna use honestly, this is the one series I might get wrong. And honestly, a lot of series I might get wrong. I'm gonna use heart. Because again, Jimmy Butler rises to the occasion. Like, Jimmy Butler's a dog. And honestly, I could see Miami winning in a Game 7 end-all situation, be-all, anything can happen situation, play-in type situation. I could see Miami winning. But I'm going to give Milwaukee the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say Milwaukee wins in 7. Now, I don't really believe it. I'm being honest. I'm going to let y'all know. In my head, I'm like Cap. In my head, I'm like Miami 7 or maybe even 6. In my head. But then again, the reason why I'm not going in my head, what we haven't seen, they're a different team. So I haven't seen what the last year isn't the same as this year. But it could be the same as last year, depending on the playoffs. So this one is hard to dictate. It's hard to foresee. So if I apply what is happening in the regular season, I know it's not going to look the exact same. I know it's 2 different seasons. I already know. You know this, me. I'm the one who, I know it. I know this. I'm the one who tells you all the time what you see in the regular season. The team that looks like that in the regular season ain't the same in the playoffs. I know that, and I tell y'all that all the time. But it's not if it was the same exact team, then you already know I'm picking Miami. But adding Drew Holiday, I know who Drew Holiday is. He has that Jimmy Butler factor to him. So that could be enough to win you a series in a Game 7. It can be. He's not a guy who's just going to drop all average 30 or whatever. But he'll average 25, 20 to 20. Like, he's so solid. 21. Like, he's that. He is that. So that could be the difference. So because of that, I'm going to give Milwaukee the edge in a 7-game series and apply home court. I give them the edge. But my head doesn't believe it. My heart doesn't believe it. Sorry, my head might believe it, but my heart and my head doesn't really. Like, I've seen too much from Butler, man. I've seen too much. And I know Miami's a different team as well, too. So that kind of, that also is part of it. So, we'll see how it plays out. But this one has 6 or 7. If I had to put my money, it's 7. So now we move past that. We go to Brooklyn and the Celtics. Honestly, I say Brooklyn in 5 at most. I don't see this going 6. I don't see this going 7. To be honest, it might be a sweep. But Tatum could get 61 game. You never, like, Tatum is starting to get to that echelon, and there might be a defensive mishap with the Nets. You never know, right? But honestly, I think this is a sweep, or I'm not just gonna call a sweep out the gate because it's the first time like they played together in a series like this and whatever. So give them an anomaly, give them one game. Tatum and Kemba are enough to get you one game, especially if the Nets do have a bad defensive game or whatever, right, on the road or whatever. But I don't even think that, like, I think their offense is so potent they could they could affect a bad defensive game, or they could outstand or outplay a bad defensive game from their offense. So I do. 90% of me says it's a sweep, but if I'm going to be attacked for, oh my God, you said this and what your end all call all is, Brooklyn in 5 games, I will go with that. There's not too much to go in depth with this. The trio is the trio. You know what I mean? If they had Jaylen Brown, this is guaranteed 6 or 7, right? Because of that Jaylen Brown factor. Actually, still could be 5. But Jaylen Brown missing is tough. Kemba sometimes might struggle, you know what I mean? But Kemba and Jason Tatum is, you know, they've shown that they could get 30s. They've shown what they've shown, right? You've seen what they've shown in the last game. But the problem is when Tatum because they stagger minutes, when they have that bench lineup, while the Nets bench lineup is going to consist of Shamet, maybe Blake, right? And Harden. Like Harden's doing Houston Harden. You know what I mean? Like Claxton, like, you know what I mean? Like I mean Tatum is there too, but they have guys like, you know, you have Langford, and then you have you know, some they said Williams was probably going to play, but you know, you have some guys who Grant Williams and stuff like that who, like, they be struggling. Marcus Smart, we don't know how good he is on his ankle. He came back, but you know, he might be affected. Like stuff like that, you know. So it's kind of like then Kyrie comes back, and then KD is there. Like you have some bucket getters, and like you stagger the minutes, like with the bench, and you showing rotations. Like you can't have lapses if you're a Celtics. You have to play a perfect game to even push it to 6. So I don't see that happening. This isn't a knock against Tatum or Kemba or whatever. They're banged up and they're just not the same right now. So, you know, I just see the Nets just, you know, 5 games. Not too much to talk about it there. And I'm going to be talking about the Nets. We'll talk about those series and break it down further. But there's not too much to go with there. You know what I'm saying? Now, you know, that's all this series we have for the East. So let me know what y'all think in the comment section. You know, I kind of did the best I can. I don't want it to be too long, but that's kind of like my playoff prediction. There might be a game or two that has happened already when this comes out, but that's kind of my playoff prediction with the East. Now we end that, and we'll go on to the West, man. We'll go on to the West.